Our section is called not in an ordinary way, it's called digital mortgages. Financial markets are very digital oriented. Our banks are very digital, and actually all the services possible are already digitized, and even such a compound service as mortgages is trying to become digitized as well. So we are trying to sort it out now and see whether mortgages already live in the digital world and whether the clients, the marketplace as well, whether they need it. So myself and the speakers will try to answer. Elena Martynova, Deputy Head of Rosregister, Russian Registry Service, who is in charge of electronic interface with the banks and other marketplaces. Oleg Komlik, Head Director for Development of the DOM.RF company, IT company. Dmitry Grigoriev, CEO, Director General, one of the largest, is Director of Cian company. Mikhail Buzulutskiy, Head of the INGRAD company, and Olga Sorokina, Member of the Board of Directors, Deputy Director General for the business development of the military insurance company. And Kirill Romankova, Deputy Chair of the Board of Romankova. And the digital market and the mortgages, we are trying to make them digitized from the moment of selecting the real estate and to making a digital security, and up to the moment when the person is interfacing with the management companies and utility running companies, and we want to find out whether they're all digital and by what extent, to what extent we can let the person live online when for concluding performing the realty the mortgage transactions. And Elena, you are probably one of the most digitized federal authorities, Rosregister, which is very open towards the banks and the market, and they are trying to make the mortgage process as digital as possible, and so everything is implemented in order to digitize the realty transactions. And what will your process try to move online? Good morning, Kirill. Good morning, dear friends, dear colleagues. I liked this question, and I like this question of what has to be done in order to make the services digital, and they have been digitized already quite some time ago. In fact, Russian Register, Rosregister, does not have the services which would not be converted to digital format anymore, and since 2020, when the coronavirus situation made us look differently and all our processes and make them accessible remotely to the people, actually the Russian Register has completed its task, and now there is a different, a new turn. Now we are a client-centered institution, and we are client-centered and human-centered, and people are number one, and in the first place we are doing the re-engineering of all our processes, and we are issuing from people, from the client. And if the client is saying that he doesn't like something, or that they need some services, or they find some mistakes, we answer their requests, we change the processes, and so it's like a blind digitalization when there is some technology which needs to be implemented, but it's not blind in our case. It's actually based on actual requests, actual demands coming from the ground. So the clients actually, you also are a client as a bank, and so are the public authorities. So everyone, we have quite a broad line from natural entities to all public authorities on all levels, and actually the clients are all demanding, very demanding. And to make it more interesting, I would probably like to tell you that about 10 years ago Actually, how long did the title right registration take before? About a month. So from a month to 60 days. No one was angry. Were those services available in digital format? And the digital format of providing services compared to 2020, I actually monitor the statistics every morning because I'm in charge of the statistics section. On average, the services are provided in 2 days. So the period of providing services has increased. So the number of electronics, let's take DDU, it's about 80% electronic transactions. Electronic mortgages were, by the end of 2020, was 80% electronic transactions. Now that the actually it has dropped, it's 65% now. But jointly with the banks, we have asked the central bank, we drafted a memo. Central bank is always helping us, and we want to increase this number with our joint efforts. And now in the Russian register, 170 million facilities are taken into account, and 233 million rights are registered. The year 2020 was difficult, and now we keep fine-tuning the system, and we know that a big release has been made, and we keep fine-tuning the system because the requirements of the system have increased manifold, and we understand it all, and we know that we should be working not only at our processes, but at the development of the services that we got. For example, in 2020, there was a Twinopolis at a different place, and we were discussing the digital mortgages, and then we have started a project for mortgage in 24 hours. Now it's 100 online basis. All banks are taking part in this 24-hour mortgage, and 22% of mortgages takes place in less than an hour, and 50% it takes for them 16 hours. So now we can see what Rosregister has Russian Register done to digitize its services, and we are working very actively with DOM.RF. We have updated the operations of the credit institutions for the electronic mortgage bonds, which is very convenient for the people, and it helps people to save time, which is very valuable now. And on the stage of registering the credit transaction, it happens several times faster. We are now moving over to providing services 24/7, and the works that we perform, and the community of the credit organization is now pursuing the same task. They are all very open, they all eager to interact, and any service that we create with one bank, it is created in such a way that the credit all the credit institutions and the entire banking community would be able to use that service for its purposes. So the main thing is to be open, not to be afraid to solve problems jointly, and help each other, and do things for the people. Again, Elena said that how digitized the processes are at Russian Register. In 24 hours, 80% of the transactions are being processed. Are there people who've taken mortgages over the last period? Has anyone done it electronically without attending banks or insurance companies? Yes, we have also tested the client path with a great interest, and we tried to take a mortgage without attending the office. We managed, but a few things need to be, criteria need to be met. The banks and insurance companies should have their client path organized, and you should turn in your biometric data. So, Oleg, what do you think? To what extent do the majority of the marketplace today, and you as the major operator of the mortgage market, to what extent is it a fully digital, is mortgage a fully digital process? And what needs to be done to make the mortgage kickstart, and in the digital form? I approve what Olga said. The changes on the speed is very fast, and I would like to say that currently the mortgage is one of the most complicated retail products. We should look at top 10 and those other banks which are the best on all fields. It's VTB, Sberbank, Alpha Bank, etc. And of course, by betting on these products, the banks also invest in improving the client path. And we know that currently the market is established in such a way that the issuance is done in the primary market mostly, and there is quite a serious competition among the developers in order to make this client path better and more convenient. So whenever it comes to the onboarding of the client, whenever it comes to closing the credit transaction, everything is done very well. But if we look at the process in general, Kirill, I think that fully, without the office, without a courier coming, a transaction cannot be performed in Russia. Besides, if we're looking at the primary residential market, the security bond, the electronic mortgage bond need to be made, and the electronic bonds are not developed as an institute, as a form in the Russian Federation. I also looked at the studies. It's not more than 350 to 460,000 bonds. And we as a banking organization have actually purposely focused on the speakers, paid attention to the speakers. And they are members in this, participants in this process. Russian register is when a person can select the residence. Insurance, when it's related with the extension or insurance case, etc. The bank lives with this client for its entire life cycle. So if it's some kind of a throughput process, it should not be just a single point process, single point registration. But what happens with that credit afterwards? So we are actually a very important player, and we are doing the securitization of the portfolios jointly with DOM.RF, and the banks note that it's not only it's speed among other, because the transaction takes over 160 days, so it's hard to determine the coupon, the profitability rate, and we started to analyze it. And if you work with electronic bonds, you can reduce it from 100 and thereby from 150 to 45 to 50 days. And if we continue the story that the bank lives with that client for its entire life, so you want to make it digital not only when the apartment is selected, but also up to the moment when it all continues, and how the market is taking shape. When the rates used to be high and the average CPR was 5 years, the credit lifetime, now it's about 0. We have rates at the level of about 0, much lower than they used to be before, whereas the average rate at the market will probably be increasing during the next periods, and the clients have no motivation to have premature payoff. So the banks will live with those credits for 10 to 15 years, and the clients will be encountering different problems in their life, such as restructuring, refunding, extension of the insurance policies. And for the banks, if we're talking about some digital process, the banks should be looking at the entire life cycle at the point when from the point when the client comes up with this idea and to the point when there is resale, reassignment of the bond, which goes to the mortgage agent. So we have to look into this seamless way. So, and if a free assignment happened with a different bank, we need to actually seek removing this credit encumbrance and paying it off. So securitization is something that digital assets should help with. We looked at many things and I would like to ask Dmitry Grigoriev, apart from the assessors, realtors, there is a number of other players who have gradually started to pop up in the market, the aggregators, and I think that during the near future many of them will gain a status of financial platform or regulated company or marketplace, and I think they are trying to accumulate a broad spectrum of services in their shop window at least, and it was very interesting to understand how you see the future, how you see your role in the medium-term horizon. Are you seeing yourself as just a shop window? Are you a lead generator? When the client will be coming through a link to your partners, or are you going to build your ecosystem and pretty soon we will see a bank or an insurance company in your group? So tell me about your feeling. In what capacity do you see the aggregators in the insurance market? Thank you, Kirill. In the first place, I would like to ask how we see each other. Of course, Cian is not just a site where you can find realty. It's we can actually perform some transaction on our platform. We can assess the apartments. We provide the most precise assessment on the market, and we also have a mortgage marketplace which enables one to send application to a number of banks and get some pre-final offer from which the persons can choose from a set of such offers. So it's not only about finding realty, but also we want to get a license from the financial platform operator. We want to become one of the participants and integrate more deeply into the transaction and allow the market players to interface with the marketplaces. So it's a multifaceted thing. There are people who are coming to seek realty from from an apartment to a cottage or a garage or something like that, and we have realtors, and there are a whole number of transactions. About 80 to 85 to 90% of transactions are performed with the realtors, and we are also working quite a bit with the banks and other public structures in order to ease the lives of our users. Speaking about what we could participate in and how we could affect the digitalization of that process. In fact, in the first place, it's development of the competition, because it's not a secret for anyone that 70% of the mortgages market now is basically done by two banks. About 95% of the market is done by top 10 banks. And speaking about the digitalization of the mortgages, the technical possibilities play a role, and also the speed at which the bank is prepared to unfold, to develop those processes, deploy them. And we actually try to offer a product which you can integrate with your system, where you can integrate, and to have a competitive product for other banks from the point of view of digitalization of the mortgages. And also, Dmitry, there is a small intervention. To what extent are banks interested in using you as a sales channel, or do major banks build their ecosystems and try to use all the services in on their shopping window? This is definitely a question to which there is no binary answer. It's different with different people, but for many banks we are quite a significant channel, and I think it's something to do, it has something to do with the friendship and partnership, and about 50% of the users are starting their track from the selection of the facility, and it cannot be discounted as a factor. So issuing from that paradigm, of course, cooperation is beneficial for anybody, and the client's path starts with choosing the realty. But then how can you digitize the selection process, especially if it has to do with the primary market? It's a question to Mikhail. To what extent are the clients ready for online, or do they treat it conservatively? They want to touch the walls, they want to compare it with the design, and or is online also possible here? And can you purchase something through equity funding, shared equity funding contracts? Actually, I am very surprised, because I've been working in the residential facilities construction for many years, and we have encountered conservative approach of the regulator and state authorities and the creditor community, and now there is a very significant breakthrough, and I'm sure that all the electronic processes that have been done over the last 5 years are quite demanded, and it actually really eases the life for many people. So I think digital mortgages is an important part in many things, and so digital processes are almost like a hygiene for the developers, for the authorities, for many platforms, and for credit organizations. So it is an important thing, and so there is this actually substrate in what you say, and we should start this process as fast as possible. It's protection of the data, and enables the development of the constructed realty. The credit organizations start working faster, and we shouldn't also forget that we are now running a dialogue in the Moscow city, and also there are many market segments. There are segments of mass demand where people are solving a utilitarian task. They don't wanna rent housing, they wanna live there, they want to purchase it as fast as possible with minimum costs, with minimum headache, and actually the chance that they can find a mortgage to buy an apartment is actually a big achievement. And if we keep working actively at the digital mortgages, actually its integral element would be some digital passport, digital profile of a borrower. When a person, without knowing that he or she can purchase an apartment, would find it out and open his or her horizons and find the finished or constructed housing and move on, and that's a great stimulus for the economy, for the households, and for everybody. But there is another category, more conservative more conservative people, from the point of view of the age and a different treatment of finance. Those are actually more expensive buys, and underwriting of the borrower happens differently. It's the top managers or owners of businesses or people with a specific credit history, specific background. So can you actually digitize everything there in that segment and make it a conveyor-based process? Because we imply supply by conveyor basis and scaling by simplification and digitalization. In this case, we have to be very careful in this sense, and you should understand that ahead of our locomotive, ahead of our engine is the locomotive, other big developers and big banks and authorities, and we should thank you for that. But it's good that you are so advanced, but there are also regions where the situation is different. So over time people will get used to it, but you should leave some space for the manual processing. Another question is issues from the previous one, and I think one of the barriers for the digital mortgages is the accessibility, to what extent the people can trust the relations in the digital format. So Dmitry and you, can you actually comment on these mental barriers and what can be done in order to lower those barriers? Not completely, but to some extent. There definitely are barriers, and they are reducing. In 2019 we have launched our service, and last year we have undertaken about 24,000 transactions through ourselves, and every 10th transaction was done with us in this semi-digital format, when the first part of the person's way to the mortgage has been passed with us, which means that the person is ready, whereas when in the past they had to come to the office, now they saw pre-final offers, they have started to process the papers, so it was online, and it's very good. And we have also launched a service which enables one to run the transactions without the mortgages, with the courier who is signing it with an electronic signature, so you can do it at the realty agency or at home. And people are very interested, and they're using it, and this service is also increasing. If we are talking about mental barriers, according to our questionnaires, only 10% of the users told that they are not used to work online with the mortgages, and everybody else, some of them treat it more skeptically, and some of them are prepared to try it even tomorrow, and they do not discard this idea, which is very good. I think it's a good signal, definitely, but the key barrier now is related to safety. If we are talking about transactions in the secondary market, in the primary market there is a brand of the developer which is respected or not, but speaking about the secondary realty market, it is important for the person to see it with one's eyes, and so presence and touching is very important. So how to work with those concerns and those barriers, how to be able to pass through it online, and or maybe do as little offline as possible. So Oleg, can you comment on this very briefly? Yes, I am seeing that as such we don't have many critical barriers. There is the story of changing the paradigm and change of the generations. And in the first place, people under 30 are using the mortgages who have grown up with gadgets in their hands, who actually perceive digital services as something which goes by itself, and there are many bookings, insurances, ticket bookings, insurances, everything which is digital, and that actually shapes the correct client behavior. When it comes to other regions outside metropolitan areas, sometimes it's just the developers who do not have enough funds to organize the process which the federal level developer can organize, because not all the developers regionally can provide this kind of outreach. And the seller, so the seller, the platform, or the developer, or realty agency may not be able to provide the appropriate level of services. And on the other hand, it is the banks which also play a role, and also the preparedness of the audience to purchase the apartment and use those services. So, speaking about biometry, I think that the entire community jointly with the Bank of Russia should popularize this service. So if Yelena wants to add something, I think Russian Register should increase the mental availability. So this is actually what I wanted to tell you about. So we have opened it, and it's an interesting discussion, and it's actually flowing gradually to the question whether it's everything should be online or not. And we would wanna discuss it all now to be able to time-wise to discuss it. But it's all related to the confidence of people in the respective resources. And actually, the older generation over 40, it's actually generation over 40, they all have grown up with gadgets, with electronic devices in their hands, and due to that we have actually done a rebranding of Russian Register, Rosregister, and so we've made an emblem. And we have now many sites, 400 sites that copy us and duplicate our site and use this state insignia, state-related insignia. So the people should actually be directed to the correct resource, to the resource that can be trusted. And if a person is purchasing the realty, they should be able to get all the data, actually a digital profile of real estate, whether it's a primary or secondary housing market. And this sort of source of data should actually appear in the country, because the address may change, the conditions may change, and the name may change, but in the coordinates as well. But it's changes so fast. We should really gain this data source, and the registers are making it within the framework of the National System for Spatial Data, and we are collecting the data on the realty and capital construction and others. And I would like to address the next question to Catherine. Catherine, when we are talking about mortgages, we all recall the brands which most vividly are associated, such as Rosselschossbank, DOM.RF, etc. So Rosselschossbank has made its mortgages digital, and so I would like to ask how you have done it and what is missing to make it completely online, to put it completely online. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for the chance to speak, because our bank is currently, we are at the forefront of the digital mortgages, because we are the only ones who is connected with the government key, and we can provide this absolutely online-based, internet-based transactions without getting off your couch. Basically, VTB is also connecting to the service. We started like everybody, and the main impetus to the development was given by Russian Register, for which we would like to thank it very much. And Elena was very right in noting that working in the digital format for a physical entity, it's overcoming the mistrust, and then the process is going a lot easier, and we have provided the first type of service to the client. When we have done it for the first time via the Russian Register, the process went on, and due to many circumstances, the clients were forced to look at other alternatives except attending banks. So now we have an integrated platform which is called Own Housing. By Rosenhausbank is advertising this brand. When it comes like svoyo, which means one's own, when it comes to products, to foodstuffs, to banking products, etc. So there is all kinds of information there, from selecting the realty, primary realty, registration of the transaction, full signing, etc. And the only thing that you need to have is the NFC equipped phone, biometric passport. Now it's only foreign passport with biometry that Russians have. And after looking at those factors, we can see that after a massive campaign for issuing all kinds of welfare assistance, 90% of the population are registered with that site, and we've recently run a phone survey. The main restrictions, the main is related to biometric and identification. According to the official statistics, only 30% of people have foreign passports, and the number of biometric ones out of them is a little bit smaller. So Kirill, as our regulator, should probably look into a broad application of biometric documents, biometric data, apart from the foreign passport. So that could probably expand the application. Yes, we are using biometry very actively at Phenopolis, and soon it will reach the mortgages market or the remote open of the account. So finally you run the registration, you have the electronic image of the transaction, which is uploaded in your back office with the bank, your personal office with the bank, and you can always ask the bank, always retrieve the document when need be, and clarify some parameters of the transaction. And this service is very comfortable and safe for the client. So imagining the simultaneous loss of a phone and sharing your ID at the public services portal is quite hard to imagine. Next question to Olga. Insurance market is an integral part of the mortgage process, so we are insuring the life from accidents. So how digital are they, or does the client have to come to you, and to what extent can we now digitize this aspect of the mortgage insurance? Oleg has mentioned that it's an integral part, insurance is an integral part. We are participants of the throughput process, and the insurers actually are starting to implement additional services which are not related to insurance, such as different housing management related services, such as doorman and so we want the client to stop paying the mortgage, finish paying the mortgage, and can stay with us. So we actually are complementary. In the first place, a person wants to buy the apartment or make investment, either make investment or live there. That's the end purpose. And getting money, getting an insurance, getting a transcript from the realty register, etc. Actually, digital mortgage solves two major problems. First one is the best client experience, because we cannot by ourselves provide this full cycle. So we interface actively both with the public sector and with our partners in the market. And secondly is operation efficiency, because in addition, actually coming back to your question, we inventorize, we make our inventory internally, and one of the key functions apart from managing the insurance events, it's also underwriting, because we have different models and scorings. We don't do anything manually any longer. And also backup process, and also partnership issue, because not all banks are prepared to maintain this digital exchange, and many of them we can note that they actually set up this interface, and in many cases it's not accessible. And the key thing is, of course, the interface with the public data sources, which Elena mentioned, not only the digital profile, but we started to receive everything via the digital profile. And we have implemented this as a digital tool, and the more we fill it in, the more data we will be obtaining. Apart from the digital profile, there will be integration with the reform of the housing sector, because we are, for us as insurers, it is important to understand what materials are used when it's a finished construction or development, ongoing development, construction, and there are also other data which are not available. It's health-related data about the borrowers, because we want to get for example, from other state registers, we can get healthcare status from DOM.RF and Russian register on the FinTech Association playground, on the FinTech Association premises. So we spoke about client path and digitalization of your services, but there is another aspect which we should pay attention to, and that is processing of the data, bulk of data which is being aggregated at the Rosregister, Russian register, and market participant, and the ability and capability to process the data is a way of lowering the costs, material and other costs, and thereby we can assess the reality and take decisions on the side of the Rosregister, Russian register. So I would like to address the question to Elena: to what extent the big data processing, modern big data processing technologies are used in Russian register, and so I know that you are a big depository of information, and you can be compared with the text service and other big depositories of information. To what extent you have automated the processing of that data, and how does it help you cope with the task? It's actually a question worth about 50 minutes, if possible for 2 minutes. I'm trying to answer it briefly. In 2 months we registered 175 million transactions, and one of the most loaded systems which works throughout the country, and we is what we are, and we work very actively with big data, and we have pre-taught neural networks. First of all, next year we are hoping to implement throughout the country the smart cadastre, which is the network which, with the help of spatial analysis, help the people to register the title for their realty, and also find a lot of errors. Also, it's a neural network which compares data from the remote probes and digital photos and address register and forms datasets, and on the whole we have encountered the fact that, especially regionally, many people do not know that realty needs to be registered, and it's a very serious thing because it actually develops the infrastructure around and the taxes which are paid by people for their land, for their housing. It should go for the development of the infrastructure in the territory where they live, the repair of the roads, repair of the schools, building children's playgrounds. Another one is internal topic, which is also important. We process a great mass of data, and moving over to electronics, in June we have stopped the paper processing with the multifunctional registration centers. It's not Ministry of Economic Development. This one-stop shop, they are not Russian registers. We are just obtaining from them packages of documents. The main question related to Russian register is always suspensions and turning down. What should be done, why we were turned down, why it was suspended. The actually data on suspensions was very high, used to be very high. Why it happened so? We have done a very deep analysis and a huge volume of data from the moment of submission of data from the multifunctional registration centers. When we wanted to make this hard copy stop paper stop project, now all papers are going to us in the electronic form, and 26% of time we saved on the processing of one set of papers. People get the services 2 days faster, plus the transportation costs, so we got a full online basis, it's completely nationwide, regardless of the area. So, how to do it so that people would not get a suspension and will not be turned down without actually a month ago I've been to Veliki Novgorod, where we have a pre-learned network. Its name is Eva, with a feminine face. It's actually all the coincidences are random, and so at the first host is multifunctional center, and it's reading the stack of documents and seeing what documents are missing and how to give a feedback to a person that it should not be that some documents should be complemented. So we do not get document sets which will be turned down. And another host of Eve, the second host, is with this real estate register. It's going to be industrially operated pretty soon, and it's going on very hard. There are 40,000 iterations on the terms of one contract to train the neural network, and then the digital assistant will help the registrator, will draw his attention to the risks, and will get data sets of data which can be implemented in the contract building mechanism. And I think your experience can be actually spread to other data, to other cases, and parts of this data can be channeled to the banks and other institutions, and like you also have tremendous amounts of data, and how do you use it to reduce the cost and increase the efficiency of the mortgage process. I think everyone is involved with the data and with the country as an organization at the very beginning of this track, and it's very difficult, and it depends on the infrastructure which is built with any player, and we often do not take emails and phone numbers. People do not actually compare, update the phone number bases, etc. So we believe in the data, and we think how to work with them. So there are actually two examples. And we have a big mortgage portfolio which enables us to take the correct decisions when the analysis is concerned. And when the mortgage security law was changing several times in the course of several years, and with the help of a serious consultant, we have created the models which can be thereafter verified with the Bank of Russia, and that has enabled us to assume certain risks based on for securitization, and that made us accelerate the portfolios that we're working with. Another thing that we are doing together with the Russian register, actually, there is our house.rf, nash DOM.RF system, where we store all the information about the primary market, which is also enriched by the Russian register information, and this bulk of data on the bank side, which is doing the project financing, we actually normalize it, and we have created a cloud platform which helps to validate those models, and we are doing it to take decisions, quite risky decisions, on project financing and also for the market. And there are two aspects that need to be emphasized. There is a huge bulk of data which is operated by the state in the person of many institutions. And for example, digital profile, it's a useful thing, and with association have drafted a huge number of letters how to fine-tune it, how to make it an operational thing, and data on the foreign passport are pulled over from the public services portal, and not always the data is updated on that portal, and sometimes the banks do not get the appropriate information and they cannot take a decision based on the incoming data. So I sincerely believe that this job has to be done, and if you do it systemically, it's very difficult. There are the Ministry of Interior and others who are working with us, Russian register, etc., and this will give a huge boost for the development of the sector and economy as a whole. Well, our workshop is gradually moving towards the sense, so let's make a short survey of the participants, and so let's all nominate two factors which will help us make the mortgages digital. We need to increase the accessibility of state services and make seamless transitions from electronic to paper. And Mikhail, I would probably agree, there is nothing to add. I think that we should also pay attention to various rocks in the shoes, and those seamless transitions, digital signatures and notaries should also change. With the notaries it's a little bit more difficult, yet you are right, absolutely. Two things. First is to convey better the value and security, safety of this process. And for many people, the process of purchasing housing is the transaction of their lifetime, and how it should be communicated. We are the market professionals. It's done either with the realtors or with the builders. And also work with situational barriers and also make it seamless. And people are beginning it in a different manner. Some start with selecting of accessible proper mortgage proposal, and for others it's a seamless way. Elena, for you, for the dessert, Olga, your opinion? In the first place, it's accessibility. and safety of the data, and secondly, it's desire and the confidence of all the process participants, including the public sector, the state. What Olga is saying, there are many initiatives going different directions, and if we try, if the market is working on the same set of topics, and we bring it to the stage when they actually do work. And another thing, it's a question to you, Kirill, is to help us from the point of view of regulation to run some experiments, to launch various initiatives without waiting for many regulatory documents to be agreed. And I shouldn't, I have to agree, because the normative documents are quite easy, and we need to agree on the we have agreed the draft law on experimental modes, and soon they will come up with more broad opportunities for running the running various pilot activities, experiments. Elena, now the floor goes to you. At one of the board meetings of Russian Register, Maxim Shadaev has taken the floor, and he said that everything should be digitized, totally everything should be digitized. And we are working with the Ministry of Digitalization, digital technologies very closely. And then the deputies started to speak, and they said Russian Register is doing good, but let's get back the paper title certificate that everybody used to store at home. Some used to store it in a safe box, and it was considered to be the main paper, which was passed over from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren, etc. So what we should all do to make the mortgage completely digital is not to forget about the people, and there are many people who are missing, and we are doing our job. And as I was answering, when I was coming here, I thought what the questions would be, and we all thought, Oleg also mentioned that we're working in a certain digital ecosystem. We thought what is an ecosystem? About the partnership, and one of the principles of the strategy is the partnership. And I checked the dictionary, and the word is formed on the basis of the ancient Greek word ecos. And what is ecos? How does it translate? Do you know? Does anyone know ancient Greek? I'm actually a very curious person, and it actually means housing. So we all, in order not to forget about the person, about people, we should complete the work which we have started when it comes to creating the my residence, my housing, super service. And namely in the eco-partnership, in this intertwined, interrelated chain, we are creating the service where we have invited everybody, credit organizations, insurance companies, regulators, developers, and aggregators of the market. We have called upon everyone because the person needs one thing: a comfortable window, one verified environment, and we are for the first time. This is like a transaction room, a virtual transaction room in the My Housing Super Service, where from any personal office, the lawyers, the developers, the notaries, etc., which they can enter, aggregators as well, like Cian, which they can enter, where you can make this treaty or construction or contract composition program, and you can run the transaction preparation in an accelerated format. So let's do it together, so that people, for people, it would be easy and comfortable to live in this country. Sounds very optimistic. Thank you very much, and I hope that it will be a fully fledged partnership and collaboration, and all the people will find themselves, both the banks and insurance marketplaces and everyone, and they will not discover that one window opened and the other window is closed. So our time is almost up. So I propose 2 questions from the room, and if anyone wants it, please. Yes, let me add a few not so pleasant comments. For all of that to work, all the process participants should be bound by one chain, like a song goes of one Russian rock band. I have taken mortgage loans twice with 2 big banks lately. One is a big Russian bank, another one is a subsidiary of an international bank. And until recently, and in now, no one of them have been offered to do it digitally. And I think this is the problem, because we are trying to do something. There is a lot of fuss, but nothing works. I was prepared to do it. I was working in the financial market. I have a certification center with the company. I know what an electronic signature is, but I haven't been offered that. My name is Ilya Fomichov, with a special depository. And what were the banks? No, I will not nominate the banks in order not to create problems, in order to make anti-advertisement, not to distract people from those banks, disencourage people. Actually, finally it ended well, but I didn't want to have the mortgage for a long time. But I actually look quite liberally at that process. For many people for whom it's a matter of their lifetime, there are a lot more obstacles for them. I have been proposed to come to an insurance company, to their doctor, and I haven't had any time for that. And I have had to actually take a mortgage at a higher percentage because I just didn't have time to get a doctor screening. But speaking fair, actually finally I paid for the mortgage, and now after the mortgage apartment has become my property, I had a call as if from an employee of the bank, which looked like a swindler call, and it was somebody was calling and saying that they want an electronic mortgage bond. So many people actually think that electronic mortgage bonds are some kind of a cheating, but they actually are not cheating. Many my neighbors, many my fellow residents have actually encountered that. And I'm from profit-based platform, so I'm looking at from the banking perspective and from the developer perspective. Unfortunately, we don't have the digital Ministry of Digital Development representatives, without whom we cannot speak about comprehensive digitalization. And there is one developer here, and most of the services are focused on the banks. And most of the players have no outlined access, regular access to the infrastructure. According to one of the last government ordinance, aggregators and large financial players are taking part, but not the professional technology vendors, because at the junction of the digitalization, different digitalization applications, we will actually get the solutions for fully fledged digital mortgage. And so we will invite people from the Ministry of Digital Development next time and see how my residence, my housing service is doing, how it is developing. Thank you, and have fun during the rest of the day.